And it's time for the first edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We're talking all about baseball, a continuation of our long running MLB This Week program. Here it is. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show, brought to you by BaseballTalkRadio.com. We're excited to bring our first edition, even though all of our listeners have been listening to us for probably a while now with our older show called MLB This Week. I'm kind of psyched about this, Gary.
Me too, Rich. I'm all excited. New title. We didn't work out all the particulars yet with the video opening and whatnot, but that'll all be coming as we get more into it. But I'm excited about it, Rich. Should be a great thing, and we hope to have guests on in the future and do all kinds of great stuff.
And I like your lower third there, Gary Mack, with your new address, Gary at baseballtalkradio.com. And of course, you can reach me on an email at rich@baseballtalkradio.com. And it sounds like we're answering to a higher call now, Gary. We've got more responsibilities for our listeners.
Well, we've got more things to cover now, Rich. It makes it a little easier maybe for us also, because we have more of a vast world to cover, and we can pick our stories a little bit. You know, the big story this week, Rich, has been, of course, we just passed the trading deadline on Monday, and some of the teams really got themselves in a good position. Those Texas Rangers really did a nice job.
Yeah, they did. A lot of flurry of trades after not much happened up to the deadline, which was pushed up to Monday afternoon at 4 o'clock, I believe. And what did you think about that, Gary? I know you had said that, 4 o'clock on a Monday, it just didn't seem right. You're used to the midnight thing, but how did it work out for you?
I still like the midnight thing, Rich. I really think it should be on at midnight instead of the 4 o'clock. And I know there's something with the games being played and whatnot, but maybe on that day you have everybody play an afternoon game, and then you have it at midnight. But I don't know. It's been 4 o'clock the last couple of years, I think, and this was just another example. But it was kind of weird on a Monday. It was difficult to follow too. Your bosses are looking over your shoulder and things like that. But I managed to follow it, and as you said, the flurry of activities, one of the busiest trading deadline days that we've seen in a long, long time. And a lot of teams helped themselves for now, and a couple of teams helped themselves in the future, and some teams didn't help themselves at all, and you scratched your head why they did it.
Yeah, as you said on the opening of the show, some of the winners of the trades were, of course, the Texas Rangers. They got Carlos Beltran and Jonathan Lucroy. Lucroy was supposed to go elsewhere, but vetoed that trade and ended up in Texas. And the Rangers got a Texas reliever there, Jeremy Jeffress, to bolster their bullpen up a little bit. So, yeah, going through the weekend, it just seemed like nothing was happening to me. Saturday into Sunday, everybody was just still thinking, what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, Monday morning, it just started and didn't stop till almost the trade deadline. So it was quite a flurry at the end there. I think in years past, we've seen a lot more movement prior to the actual end of the deadline. But, yeah, there were some winners and losers as well. I know the local team, for me, the Phillies, didn't do anything. They stood pat, didn't add anybody, didn't drop anyone. How about the Mets? How'd they do?
Well, Rich, that's a sore subject here. It depends upon who you talk to. Personally, I would think they would have done better if they stood pat. but they went ahead. They traded one deal they made was they got Jonathan Neath back, and but they got rid of Antonio Bastardo, and that was just a trade of two guys that both teams were unhappy with the particular individuals, and they decided to just trade them back for each other. So that was the one deal. The big deal, of course, that has got a lot of people angry in a way is the Jay Bruce for Dilson Herrera and Max Wotel deal that the Mets made. Wotel is a low minor league guy. That's not the question. The question was getting another left-handed hitting outfielder to so-called boost up their offense. That's the guy that went 0 for 18 and came here, went 0 for 10 before hitting a homer, and who is notoriously a bad fielder and takes a lot of strikeouts and goes into these deep slumps. Had terrible years in 14 and 15. Happens to be having a career year this year. And the Mets gave up a future second baseman that scouts have said could be an all-star. And it's really upsetting at what they've done. They have 4 outfielders now, and none of them can hit right-handed. They're all left-handed. The only outfielder they had that was right-handed was Yoenis Cespedes, and he went on the disabled list after re-injuring a quad that he should have been on a disabled list for July 7th. But you can hear that rant on Mets Musings if you'd like. Personally, I think it was just a bad move to get Jay Bruce. I don't think he's a very good player. I think he played in the bandbox, hit a home run in another bandbox, and I think the Mets are going to pay for it long term. It's funny, we were discussing this at work today, and nobody thinks about the long term ramifications. And if you think about next year now with the Mets, and I'm sorry to keep going on, but let me get this one thought out. They now have for next year, theoretically, they have no first baseman, no second baseman, and questionable at third for next year. So it was not a good trade. They added a salary they didn't have to add, and I think it's going to hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting development. I guess they had to get somebody to back up Cespedes with the injury. They probably knew that he was going to go out any day prior to the trade deadline or just shortly afterward. But yeah, Jay Bruce is sort of one of those players that can get extremely hot, though. So looking on the bright side and optimistically, maybe he'll be that guy that turns into Mr. October for the Mets. You just never know with him. Sometimes he can get extremely on a hot streak, and other times, like you said, he's cold as ice. So Yasiel Puig was going to be moved at the trade deadline, and he stormed out of the Dodgers dugout. Nobody could find him for a while.
Well, believe it or not, that's the guy he would have been a perfect fit if you wanted to get another outfielder, because he's a right-handed hitting outfielder. You probably could have got him for virtually nothing. And, maybe with another Cuban in the outfielder with Yoenis Cespedes, maybe Cespedes could have sat him down and put some good thoughts in his head and straighten him out a little bit. And, if you get that guy straightened out at 25, there's an enormous amount of talent there. There's no dispute about that. It's just getting his head straight and getting him to play ball and keeping him in a game. And perhaps that could have happened here, but now the only way they can get him is in the offseason or over waivers. And as far as the Mets go, I don't know if they're interested, but that would have been a call I would have been making if they were serious about looking for more power. The deal I wanted to go see was really the LaCroix deal. That would have been a perfect fit for the New York Mets. They're looking for a catcher, veteran catcher. He can hit. He's a veteran catcher. He can handle the pitching staff. Does very well with that young pitching staff the Mets have here. He would have been a perfect fit. And if they were going to trade a top prospect to get Jay Bruce, they should have been willing to sweeten whatever deal they could make with the Brewers. They made a couple of offers to the Brewers, but I would have sweetened it with a top prospect to get LaCroix because I think he would have been a better fit here.
Yeah, and looking at back to Yasiel Puig, um, debuted in 2013, hitting out at 319 with 19 homers, finishing as the NL Rookie of the Year runner-up. It seemed like he was going to take over baseball, but the Dodgers demoted him, sent him down to AAA. I believe they owe him somewhere in the neighborhood of 27 million over the next couple years. They did invest in Puig, and I've seen worse players. I don't understand why Puig's downfall was so swift. Of course, we remember his run-ins with old Dodger manager Don Mattingly quite often, and maybe this is just another manager going to management and saying, "Look, I can't control this person. He's got a mind of his own. He's already played 81 games for the Dodgers, and that might be his last game in a Dodger uniform." But looking over his line, he was batting 260, 34 RBIs, and 7 home runs. So he wasn't actually the worst guy you could have out in the field. And as you said, I think he's a talent that needs to be developed, needs to be chaperoned, so to speak. And I think you're right. Just having him around a guy like Cespedes, who seems a little more level-headed most of the time, would have been an excellent choice to have team up with the Mets.
Yeah, and with the Mets too, you have Bartolo Colon, who's a Latin ball player, and Jose Reyes now is there, and they all speak the same language, so that may have helped him to have these veterans around, that could tell him, hey, we're not going to take that kind of crap here. So you better straighten up and fly right. And again, I think they could have gotten him cheap. And look, if he didn't work out, you give him his walking papers at the end of the year. But it'll be interesting to see what the Dodgers are going to do with him at this point.
Yes, it will be. We'll see who ends up with him. If he goes out on waivers, a lot of people are saying the worst team in baseball right now will be picking him up. And that, of course, is the Atlanta Braves. They move to a new stadium next year. He could be an important part of that opening of the stadium down in Atlanta. And switching gears a little bit here, away from the trade deadline, just this past couple days, Gary, I don't know if you noticed or not, MLB.TV had a great deal on the remaining portion of the season for people. And I was going to pass it along to our listeners on the show tonight, but it's already over. So sorry we couldn't share it with you, but it was $17.99 for the remaining couple months of the season.
Wow,
for
that.
For 3 days, they did it for the trade deadline. I think it ended last night at midnight, which would have been August 4th, 2016. But I jumped all over that. I didn't sign up earlier in the year for it. Just at times I didn't have time to watch some of the games out of market. But now I felt like, wow, I'm getting August, September, and then into October for playoff baseball, and I'm getting the radio package and the at-bat you get a free subscription to too. So it was a no-brainer, $17.99.
Well, I didn't see that, and I wish I did. I had purchased the minor league package because you know me with the minor league games, and I am enjoying that. I have to say, I paid a little bit more money. I think it was $40 or something, but I've already got my money's worth, and I'm sure that within a couple of days you'll get your money's worth. With the weekend, you'll probably be up late watching some West Coast game. And when you think about it, $18, and if you really watch two games, you really kind of get your money's worth already. Counting the price of a ticket, even one game.
Yeah.
That's a good deal. And if you like the game like us and like to watch other teams and stuff, that's a terrific deal.
Yeah, I had the Yankees Mets on from New York. I had four games at one point playing at the same time, and as one would go to a commercial, you can select the next game, and if you saw something happening, you could go select the next game. So
What do
yeah,
they put? You put like four screens up on
yeah,
one screen, like a picture in picture type of deal.
yeah. It's got a toggle switch towards the bottom of your main screen. You can either watch one game at a time. I think there's a selection for two games, and then there's a selection for a four-game box, which you can select each game for each box that you want to monitor and watch.
Hmm.
And the good thing about it is you can select the audio, whatever game you have playing, you're listening to that audio. If you click to the next game, then you're on that game and you're listening to that audio, of course. So it's an interesting way to watch, especially some of your favorite players when they're playing on a specific night. You want to tune in and watch their at bats or whatever. You can really fine tune that.
Well, that's a bit more sophisticated than the MILB one, but I'm still enjoying it, and you'll have to report back to us on how you're enjoying your MLB.
Yeah, and they're still talking about that out of market, uh, being able to watch it if you have the cable subscription, your home team. They say they're just about there. They're probably putting the finishing touches on the agreements for that. But say you're a Dodger fan and you want to watch them come to the East Coast and play Philadelphia and New York on a road trip, you'll be able to see your Dodgers and tune in right on MLB.tv to watch that game live, which is something that you think you should have been able to do all along with a package, especially when you're paying for it. I don't understand that blackout, but maybe there's some technology that they have to put in place to just allow you to see the out of market games. But yeah, they're making a great inroad. And this year, I hate to keep tooting the horn because we're not getting paid for any of this. But this year, if you had three or more friends in a group and you signed up for MLB.tv, which I think was about 109 for the year, you could have gotten up to a 30% discount just for all three of you to join up. And you all pay separately. So you just, have your little group. You have three friends get in, and you're going to save 30%. So, yeah, that's a nice savings that they offered this year, and they really didn't have to do that.
And even at $109, it's not that bad a deal.
Not at all. Like you said, I was about to buy some tickets just the other day to an afternoon game, and it would have cost me more than that just for a pair of tickets for one game. So
there you go.
Pretty good deal there. And of course, Gary has the MILB package, and he also does a show on the Brooklyn Cyclones. If you are a big MILB fan and a Penn League kind of guy, you might want to tune into that show on the Brooklyn Cyclones. You can find it over at baseballtalkradio.com, the home of great baseball radio shows. Over 30 there now. Gary's show, Mets Musings. I have Phillies Talk there, Phillies Talk podcast. There's the Dodgers, a couple of Cubs podcasts, and they must be in their element this year, Gary.
They sure must. They're just whipping through everybody, but we'll see what happens in the playoffs.
Yeah, and we're gonna try to bring some of our blogger slash broadcaster people that we're associated with on the baseballtalkradio.com. We're going to try to get them on this show, see what they think about their season. We'll be able to get you right to the pulse of some of these teams. These guys are just crazy about their teams as well. They follow them quite regularly, and they do a great job doing that as well, Gary.
They certainly do, Rich, and there are a lot of fine teams out there this year, and it's going to be an interesting September as we come down the stretch run now. things are starting to tighten up a little bit, and going to be a classic year, I think.
Yep. And a late breaking story came out this morning. Um, Kind of a surprise, but the Yankees announced at 3 p.m. That the first baseman Mark Teixeira will announce that this is his last year, 36 years old. He's got a right knee that's been bothering him and some neck and foot issues this year. Uh, Signed a huge $180 million contract. This is the final year of that. So pretty set for money there. But Mark Teixeira retiring after 2016.
Yes, and as you say, Rich, he's been pretty banged up this year. He's only hitting about 205, something along that range, not hitting the home runs, and been in and out of the lineup the last few years. So probably figure he did say that if he had a contract, he would have played another year. But being that the contract's up, I guess he figures there's not going to be a lot of takers, not going to be a lot of big time offers. So maybe it's time to just get healthy as best as you can for life and quit the game. And he'll have a career somewhere. He'll probably go into broadcasting. They've been hinting at that already. Somebody will pick him up, either ESPN maybe, MLB might. They're always looking for in studio people and whatnot. So he'll find something to do. And Rich, just going back to the trade deadline, as much as it hurts me to say it, the Yankees really did a really fine job this trading deadline. They got rid of a lot of contracts. They dumped Beltran. I shouldn't say dump because he's still good. He's still a good player. It's going to really help the Texas Rangers. But they did get rid of his contract. They did. Teixeira's going to retire now, and they got very young, and they got a lot of really good prospects, and they acquired Clint Frazier, who's considered by some to be the best prospect in the game now, and they got him in a trade. So they really did a very nice job of revamping their entire farm system practically in one day. And they had some good players, but in the lower level. I'm talking about the Penn League, short season A, and down that far. So they really helped out their upper minor leagues with some of their trades. And like I said, as much as it pains me to say it, they really did an excellent job with getting everything straightened out and rebuilding it this quickly.
Yes, they did. And jumping over to Pittsburgh on our next segment here, hard to believe, but the rise and fall of some of these players seems to happen so fast at times. Andrew McCutchen on the bench for 3 games. He's been in a deep slump. The Pittsburgh Pirates and manager Clint Hurdle opted to give McCutchen a physical and mental break, as it was reported on MLB.com. Watch from the dugout as the Pirates lost 2 of 3 to the lowly Atlanta Braves earlier this week in Turner Field. So it's amazing sometimes how some of your best players just head into these slumps in baseball, and they just have to work themselves out of these slumps. And one of the good players of Pittsburgh getting a show of the bench there, trying to gather his thoughts and maybe regain what he has been known to do for that team.
Well, Rich, I really believe he's hurt. I think he's got some nagging injuries. He had a couple last year that really, I don't know if he recovered from completely. He had a wrist injury and some other type of it's not a major injuries, but those small nagging types. And wrists in baseball is so important, and so I believe he's hurt. I think he's got some injury that he's playing through. Again, it's probably not terribly awful injury. He didn't tear anything, but it's enough to really stop his production. And He's just too good a ball player, too much talent to have lost it this quickly. I really believe that he's injured of some sort.
Yes, indeed. Well, we have a streak going on in baseball. How long has it been since we said that? An actual streak in baseball. Jason Worth, none other than Jason Worth, he's been known for his deluges into some real bad spots at times with the Nationals. Of course, he signed that huge contract. Uh, wasn't producing very much this year earlier in the season. Well, he's got an on base streak going into 36 games as we're doing the podcast, the start of the show tonight. Uh, he's got another chance to extend that tonight to 37, but we don't hear that too often anymore.
Yeah, that's for sure. And he's tied with that streak with Marlins Marcell Ozuna. But, he's been. I know people talk about his contract that he signed with Washington, but they had to make that signing. They had to make a splash when he came out as a free agent. They had to get a name player at that time. They had to show they were for real. And that's why they overpaid to get him. But, I still believe that last year part of the problem that Washington had was that he was out a lot with injuries, and he was really the heart and soul of that team. He's been healthier this year, and I think that has helped Dusty Baker, get this. With the help of Dusty Baker, I should say, they put it together more this year, but they'll blow up in the playoffs. I don't expect them to go very far.
Yeah, we're not worried about that, of course. And Worth did get a hit already tonight. I believe that'll extend it to 37. He got a hit. He's 1 for 2 so far. A live in-game update here for anybody that listens to the show shortly afterwards, or maybe even the next day. They're playing the San Francisco Giants, so a good series there in Washington, down there in Nationals Park. I know the Phillies just played the Giants. They played them pretty tough, beat them 2 out of 3, almost swept them. So the Giants are getting a little roughed up here on the East Coast.
Giants are having a tough time. They're slumping a little bit now, Rich, and the Dodgers are only like 2 games behind them now, and I don't know how the Dodgers are doing it, to be honest. They lost Kershaw. He just went on the 60-day disabled list, so don't know how they're exactly going to do it, but it's turning out to be a race. They had a fairly big lead out there, and now, as I say, it's down to 2 games, so that's going to be one to watch. And it is an even year, so we tend to lean towards the Giants. In an even year, they have that unbelievable record, but really, they have been struggling as of late. So we'll have to see. They're only 4-6 over the last 10 games.
Yes, they are. Well, let's recap some of the weekend series games for you here. If you're listening to the podcast over the weekend that we're doing the show here, taping it on Friday, August 5th, 2016. Looks like Pittsburgh's playing Cincinnati. Cleveland Indians taking on the Yankees, and the Indians are taking a little beating early on in Friday night's game. They're down 6-0 early on here in the 4th inning. San Francisco and Washington, of course, we just mentioned that. Minnesota is taking on Tampa Bay this weekend. The Mets and the Detroit Tigers going at one another. It's Baltimore and the Chicago White Sox. Texas Rangers and the Houston Astros, the battle for Texas down there. And over in the Midwest, it's the Atlanta Braves and the St. Louis Cardinals going to do battle this weekend. Kansas City Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays. Miami Marlins taking on the Colorado Rockies out there in Colorado. Milwaukee Brewers and the Arizona Diamondbacks out on the West Coast. And then we have the Cubs way out in Oakland this weekend. The Dodgers and Boston out there in Dodgerland. And the LA Angels taking on the Seattle Mariners. And it's the Phillies out in San Diego. They have the latest start of all the games here on Friday night. as we're talking about them, Gary. 10:40 p.m. Eastern. I don't think I'm going to see an inning of that game.
That's a little past your bedtime.
Yes. So let's take a look at the standings here. We're going to do an abbreviated show for you for our first edition of the MLB Talk Radio Show. I love the format so far. It seems a little looser, and I can't wait to get some guests on with us, Gary.
Yeah, I'm excited about it, Rich. I am enjoying this better than our old format. It is a little better just to throw a topic out and let's discuss it.
Yep, and we're going to have plenty of places that you can listen to the show on your usual spots that you download us, iTunes, Stitcher Radio. We're going to be at Podomatic still. And we're even going to continue the video show. We were talking about whether we wanted to keep it going or not, but I think we're going to keep that going as well over on YouTube, of course, where you've always seen us. So glad to bring this show to you, and we'll just run through some of the standings here for you to wind up the first edition here. American League, it's still the Baltimore Orioles now tied up with the Toronto Blue Jays. It seems like Toronto's had a recent surge, Gary.
They certainly have, Rich. They've really moved up 7-3 in their last 10, and Baltimore's gone 4-6. So it's really been a move by Toronto, and but boy, you got to give Baltimore credit. They've really hung in there, and Boston's still in there too. They're only 2 games back. They get a tough voter. They're playing the Dodgers this weekend. Is that what you said? So that should be an interesting series.
Yep.
Both of them fighting for position now and to stay in the race. And the Yankees are 5.5. I'm sorry, they're 500. They're 7.5 out. And I guess you got to say they still got a shot.
Yeah, they got a shot. They're winning tonight. If they beat the Indians on a Friday night, they're over 500. They're 1 game over. Could shave a half a game to 5 games back in the wild card. They're definitely perched to make a move if things turn around there in the Bronx.
Yeah, certainly. And you were talking about the Indians, and they're holding on. They've got a 3-game lead over Detroit, who's been absolutely hot. I think they won 8 in a row before losing yesterday. But they're only 3 games back, and they're ahead of the Mets right now with Verlander on the mound. And Cleveland's losing, so that could be down to 2 games. Then there's a gap to the White Sox. And, Rich, what happened to the Kansas City Royals? They're 11 games out and 6 games under 500.
Yeah, they've sort of been the team to lose their luggage, so to speak, on a flight there. 3-7 in their last 10. But the big glaring thing for me is their record. They're 32-19 at home, but a woeful 19-38 on the road. I can't explain that, how a team that's supposed to be good and play 32-19 at home can go 19-38 on the road. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you would have thought, but it's could be the old World Series hangover. They lost some guys, and you play late in the season. You're not as prepared. You get off to a slower start, and then it just wears on you the season. And I don't know how true it is or if there's any truth to it, but certainly you see it a lot nowadays. So. And then look at Minnesota, Rich. They have picked it up, but they just got off to such an horrendous start that it's very difficult to creep back in at this point.
Yeah, you would almost have to go on a 20-game winning streak, and that would get them up to 500. So yeah, they've dug a deep ditch for themselves. I don't look for them to do anything. I know one of my buddies has them in a fantasy league. He had drafted them, stuck with them, expected them to turn it around even after 25 or 30 games, 40 games, and they're still at the bottom of the barrel. But, yeah, it's going to be a long season for them remaining. out in the West, in the AL West, it's the Texas Rangers still holding a good lead out there over the Houston Astros. Not sure if the Astros are going to be able to make a run. They're actually 6.5 games back from the Rangers right now. Only 3.5 for the wild card. So we'll have to see if they can make up some ground here in the month of August. Still plenty of baseball left, though.
Yeah, certainly. And I was surprised that they didn't do more at the trading deadline. I thought Houston would come make another deal, a big deal, and they really did nothing. So either they're going to make a run at the wild card or they're just going to reload for next year and not give up for this year, but, kind of back burner it a little bit. And but Texas, as we know, as we were talking before about what a great job they did in the trading deadline, and they even set themselves up for the playoffs, getting a guy like Carlos Beltran, who's very good in the playoffs. So a good catcher to work with their pitching staff, a decent pitching staff now. As you said, they picked up a relief pitcher, another relief pitcher. So they're poised and ready to go. And a couple of weeks ago, I thought Cleveland was going to be the best team and had the best pitching, but Salazar got hurt now. So we don't know how long he's going to be out and whether he'll be around for the playoffs. So interesting to see. Texas may be the team to beat now in the American League.
Certainly seems like it. We wanted to let our listeners know, as well as thank you for staying with the show. We'd like to hear your comments as well. So if you have a webcam that's halfway decent with a nice microphone on it, please record us an audio. You can email it to us. You can email it to Gary at baseballtalkradio.com, or you can email it to myself, Rich, at baseballtalkradio.com. You will have a comment about the show. If you have a comment about your favorite team, or you want to make a little statement of your own, we're more than happy to try to get your piece on the air as well. We'd love to have your input and conversation. So get to it. Make that recording. You can do it very easily, and a lot of free programs out there. Send it to us. Even go to our website. Our old website is still up, and it'll be up for a while at mlbthisweek.com. We even have our own message center there where you can send us a phone message or right through your computer or tablet. So we'd love to hear from you. So give us a jingle.
Yeah, certainly, and let us know what you think. And Rich, taking a look at the National League, we got in the NL East. We got Washington, got a 7-game lead over Miami, an 8-game lead over my Mets, 15-game lead over your Phillies, and a 25-game lead over the woeful Atlanta Braves. And Rich, the Phillies are not having an awful year.
No, they're not really having an awful year. They beat the Giants 2 out of 3. Almost, we're going to sweep them. That's the thing, though. Almost. Also ran, I think they say, as the in the races, in the horse races, the commentary after a race. They were there and also ran. They're better than they were last year. Right now, they're only 8 games back in the wild card. So the Phillies faithful are looking at that wild card games back right now. And I know it's only August 5th. And we have a long way to go, but stranger things have happened.
Oh, yeah, we're all checking that wild card now. I mean, I checked the box score to see how St. Louis and the Dodgers are doing and Miami. So I'm not sure Miami's going to continue this pace.
Yeah, they've jumped out there and wrangled the bull by the horn, so to speak. They have lost their last 3 in a row. Can they sustain it? As you said, they're 57 and 51 as we're talking tonight. 7 games back from the Nationals, and it certainly seems that they're poised to do something. And we'll have to see as the next few weeks go on what happens with them.
Yeah, and over the Central, we talked a little bit about the Cubbies. They're out. They've got I think that's a pretty solid 9.5 game lead over the St. Louis Cardinals, who are making their move in the wild card now. And Pittsburgh's at 500. Rich, that's I don't know what went wrong this year with that team. They won 90 some odd games last year, and now they're at 500 this year, and I don't really know what happened there. But then we have Milwaukee at 48 wins and Cincinnati with 44. And, not a real bad year for Milwaukee either. I think they'd have to really admit that they were projected to really have a lousy year like the Phillies, and they're not doing so bad either.
Yeah, they almost up to 50 wins. A team that probably won't make the playoffs, but the fans aren't as upset with them probably as they were in previous years. They still have a long way to go. And you kind of wonder how some of these fans, especially from some of these Midwest teams that like your Cincinnati, your Pittsburgh, your Milwaukee, three teams right in that NL Central, for example. You kind of wonder how the faithful fans stay with those teams because it is hard to go through each season. You don't have much prospect of the playoffs, things like that. It's got to be pretty tough.
Well, it's interesting you picked those three, Rich, because two of those three teams are football towns. Pittsburgh is definitely a football town. They'll draw. There are a lot of baseball fans, but there's not much of an argument. It's predominantly a football town, as is Milwaukee with the Green Bay Packers. So I guess they're used to losing and moving on to football, especially around this time of year now that with the training camp open and all that sort of thing. So, but Cincinnati is a baseball town, and but I think they expected it. I don't think they were not totally unhappy. The last few years have not been good, and they see them making some moves, getting rid of some of the contracts, bringing in some young talent, and we'll have to see where it all goes. But if you see your team trying to do something and trying to get better, that's all really you can hope for.
Yeah, and the best thing that Cincinnati did this year, in my opinion, is taking in Pete Rose. They finally turned the page on Pete Rose, accepted him into their personal Hall of Fame, made him part of that Cincinnati Red history officially, regardless, with the blessing of baseball, of course. So, yeah, I'm really happy about that. I've never been to Cincinnati, but really applaud that move.
Yeah, it was a great move by them, and you can't deny what he did in that uniform and for that team.
And out in the West, in San Francisco, of course, they're still holding the lead out there, although the LA Dodgers are clawing back up at them. 2 games back right now are the Dodgers, and they have a formidable opponent out there in LA, which they'll start tonight a little later with Boston. So Boston's doing much better in the AL East. They're trying to get back up there as well, get after the Toronto Blue Jays and also the Baltimore Orioles. So we'll have to watch that series as well, Gary.
Yeah, and Rich, Colorado is at 500 and having a better year than everybody thought. And they're only 8 games back. And really, the shocker of the whole Western Division's got to be Arizona. I think I picked them as my dark horse team, and boy, they fell apart. Maybe it's those ugly uniforms they got this year.
Yeah, it's too many uniforms. I think there was 8 or 9 changes of uniforms. The players are probably just so trying to find out which uniform they're wearing each game rather than worrying about how they're playing. But, of course, Zach Greinke has been slipping a little bit for them as well, and their offense isn't too well either. So didn't really work out for them in Arizona. We'll have to see what happens with them in the off season. But yeah, Greinke got a ton of money. That's what he wanted, and the Arizona Diamondbacks didn't get much.
Maybe they're so exhausted with, as you say, with picking out all these uniforms that they can't play when they get out there.
That's it. That's 9 changes of uniforms. It's a bit much.
And that road uniform, boy, that dark gray, that's just ugly.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder how they approve that. I mean, I can see 3, maybe even 4 changes throughout the season, but once you get beyond that, I think it gets a little crazy.
Well, now they're getting the throwbacks, and it gets nuts after a while.
Well, we hope you enjoyed our first edition here, the MLB Talk Radio Show. I certainly did, and looking forward to the next one. You might note our new numbering system for the shows. 1.1 is this show, and of course, this is our first year, which stands for the first one, and then the episode number. So I think that's a pretty cool way of keeping track of the show, Gary.
Sounds good, Rich.
So we'll talk to you again all on the next edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. Have a great week, everyone.
See you then.